Welcome back, everybody. I would expect everybody has completed the treasure chest now, and we'll move on to producing the drawings of the treasure chest. Now you'll notice on the bottom of the screen here we've got your model space where your geometry is, and then we have these layouts. These particular layouts, normally by default there'll be two layouts. You'll have open, and if I just click on a new one, starting a new layout, which will be layout 5, you'll more than likely have a blank screen like this. I have loaded a title block which you can access elsewhere. All we're really concerned about now is the layouts. What I've got here, you can see I've talked about this in previous tutorials, the size of our title block. That's where all the information about what you're drawing, all the details that you need to know. This particular one here is an A4 sheet. The title block is exactly the same on both these layouts. It's just that this is on a sheet of paper that's twice the size. It's A3, layout 2 is A4. Now, in the layout 1 with the A3, you will be able to fit everything that you need to on one page. Whereas A4, you might need 3 or 4 different sheets to be able to provide all the documentation you need for the treasure chest. What we'll do to begin with, before we can start, we need to have individual drawings for the front and back, the two ends of the treasure chest body, the ends of the treasure chest lid, and all of the 3 different types of slats. We need to have individual drawings for those. Now, because we're in 3D, we've always got to use these views here, or otherwise we can end up going somewhere we don't want to. So we just look at front. Now we need a copy of an end, so what I'll do is just copy that. The side, and I'll copy the base, copy we need both of these, so if I go from left to right, right to left, sorry, I'll get an end as well as a lid end. Move that so I can separate them. And we need a copy of one of these slats, one of these, and one of these. We have to be able to set these up on pages, on different views, so that we can dimension them. And what we have to make sure when we dimension them, that they won't interfere with anything else, any of the other views that we have. You will find this, that we have to move them in different places. See this one that I just turned that around. If I go to view and look at top, because you notice I couldn't move that one. It's because it's to be able to move it, it has to be on the XY plane. Sometimes when you're in 3-dimensional, you can move things. I've got to pick move, and I can move it because it's on the XY axis, but I can't move it back to the Z axis. But that's not what I'm trying to do. If I wanted to have these on the same face as that, well, because I'm on the XY, now I can rotate it. Whereas the way that it was before, I wouldn't have been able to rotate it. So I'll go 90, enter. And what I'll try and do is set these up so that they're all side by side. Like so. Not sure which one that was. I know that it was an extra lid there, but that should be that. And then we've got, if I go back to the front view, see that was an extra one, I didn't need that one, delete. But you can see these were all in the same line, but in the other orientation, they're not. I'll put that one over there, because we don't want these things you to be able to see these things in our other views in the layout. These ones here, this one, it's better to have them laying flat. This one here, we'll just need to rotate down. But this one, we'll have to align it so it's in the right. You can't have it on an angle, so I will just align it to this one. And then just move it around so it's in the same line. This one, I want it to be up on the same level. Because just the attention to detail thing I was talking about before, you can see how this one, it's mirrored to that one, whereas this one's on the longer, the overhanging pieces on the bottom. It's on, that just doesn't look good. So I'll just rotate this so that it's the same. Or does it rotate? I want that one. Just rotate it, and I'll move it down into the line. So now they're basically in line. That one can go a little bit closer. So that's just setting it up for us to do our drawing. If we look at, so that was the left. If we look at the right view, right, we can see these ones here aren't particularly, they're not in line. It does, we won't see that when we're doing it, but they weren't in line with each other. These ones here are pretty right. That's okay, because if I haven't done this right, we will see it when we get into the model, into the paper. Okay, so now we've got our sheet of A3 paper. What we want to do now, I've explained this before. You can just imagine you're looking out a window and you can see a building out of the window. Somebody puts a piece of paper over it. You can't see through that anymore. You've got to imagine that's what has happened here, that somebody's put a piece of paper over your computer screen that you were looking in the model space. The only way we're going to be able to see in the model space is to cut a hole in the piece of paper. And for that, we've got to do what's called viewports. It's like a ship has got portholes, so you can see inside the ship, outside the ship. It's only because there's a little round circle with a window, piece of glass in it, you can see out. So that's what this is. It's a viewport. Spell it V-I-E-W-P-O-R-T-S. And that comes up. Press enter. This is a dialog box that comes up. Now, to begin with, I'm just going to, you can create any amount that you want. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to pick 4 equal ones. Click OK. And then pick top left corner and go to the top of the title block. Don't cover the title block. And there's our 4 viewports. But as I've previous tutorials, I talked about the viewports layer. We want to put these viewports on the viewports layer. If you remember, that's so that when it prints, you won't print the viewport layer. The printer is turned off. If I go to this one here, the layer properties, you can see I've turned off the printer. You can do this in all versions of software, be it Mac or Windows, you can turn off the printer. Okay, we want to click inside our viewport. Now we want to look at the end of it first, so we go back into the views, 3D views, and remember that was the front. So we turn it around and we want to zoom up so that we can only see the treasure chest. Then if you look down on the bottom right hand side, there'll be a viewport scale. I want to make the scale 1:2. That's the size of the scale of it in there. Click back on the model. In Mac it's a little square and it's got a series of lines on it. It says toggle between model and paper space. Whereas Windows version only says model or paper space. Mac says toggle between model and paper space. So when I click on that, now it zooms in and out on the paper. When I'm inside model space zooms in and out. I didn't want to do that back in the top one because I've got that set at the size I want. Then we just click back at it. All you've got to do is click outside of the model space as well, and it goes back to paper space. So the issue I had once a long time ago is I made my viewport so big, I was in the viewport and I couldn't get out to click outside of paper space, and I couldn't see this one, and I got stuck. I eventually found it, but it's just something to remember, that don't zoom up so much so that you can't see anything around your model space when you're on the piece of paper, or always remember this one down here. That's just a little tip. I got stuck with it once. I haven't forgotten it either. So then we can just move our viewport border in. It doesn't have to be that high. You don't have to do that either. It doesn't really matter. These can overlap and it doesn't really make any difference to the... I can put that over there, and as long as no geometry goes over that, you won't see that. It doesn't make any difference. But you wouldn't want the geometry to, if you went in there and you made it like that, that'd just be bad drafting, simple as that. You wouldn't do that. So I'll just move that back a little bit more. So we've got an end view of our treasure chest. Now this one here, that's just how it was by default. The way it opened up, I will put that at 1:2. Now that is the same scale as that. Now on this drawing, we will make everything to scale. Well, depending on how the slats come up, we might make them full size because 1:2 might be too small. But then when you look at this, that's 1:2, and that's a fair enough sort of size. As much as possible, you've got to try and make this it's not giving me it's not allowing me to pan. So that's right, in this version all I got to do is hit that arrow at the side and I can bring it up. Remember the tutorial where we talked about, and I know this feature disappeared in later versions, but in Mac, if you hold the space bar down, it gives you the pan feature, so you can move this up and down. And the idea is that these here have to be directly in line. If I take this up to the top of the screen, because the top of the screen is straight, you can see how this one here, it isn't perfectly in line. I'll double click in there and just slightly take that up. Because orthographic projection, what you see looking from that side, it's exactly in line. Same as it was the top view, it would be directly above. So you've got to do the utmost you can that these to be in the same line, they're level. So that there is a side view and a front view of our treasure chest. Now you can see all these lines that are in there. That's all when you're in your model space. They're all these, the lines you can see that from the extrusion. What we need to do is double click in here, then go to View, Visual Styles, and select Hidden. But you've got to have double clicked inside your model space for it to do that. Now that's done. You notice it didn't change it in here, it's only changed it in this viewport. So now it takes a lot of those lines out, so it appears more like a treasure chest, but it's just this overlapping piece that you can see there when it's zoomed out. But it's a lot better to view than here. Now what I want to do at the top here is also another view. I'll just copy this viewport. It doesn't matter if you're copying the viewport, it will appear the same when I take it over there. But when I double click inside here, I can go to my views and make it southwest isometric, and it zooms up so that I can see that once again. But see, this is what I was talking about before. You see how this is in that viewport as well, and we don't really want that. So we've got to move those so that they're not in it. Make that that's big enough as it is. Double click in hide. We don't want to see those lines, so we go to View, Visual Styles, Hidden, and now it hides all those lines. But what we need to do is move these parts so that you can't see them. So I'll click Save, go to Model Space. Now these ones here, I'm not going to be able to move these because X and Y is on that plane, and Z I can't usually move stuff. I'll just see if it lets me this time. Oh, it does. There you go. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. This will go this way. And now if we go back into the layout, see how it's gone. So now it's not an issue. It's as simple as that. But look what I've done up here. It's moved it, the base, so it's up there. So if I click in here, X and Y, it should allow me to move it. Click above it so it goes below. Now I've moved it so that it doesn't interfere with any view. Click Save. We can manipulate it, just moves it. So now we've got our three views there. This one here is pictorial only. The pictorial view or isometric view, its proper term is, has never got dimensions on it. Whereas our dimensions go on 2D views. Now I want to have a layer that's 4 dimensions. So I'll click on the layer box, new layer, and I'll call it dimensions. Put an N in it. Always make sure your spelling's right. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's the same color, it just gives us another layer. So I'll just select that, and now it's the current layer. So, dimension, click on that command. A linear dimension is a horizontal or a vertical dimension. If you have a dimension that's on an angle, you'll pick a line dimension. That's if the side is laying over, you'll pick a line dimension. If you want to measure the angle, you pick angle, diameter, radius, all the different dimension types that there are. but we're going to measure the width of the treasure chest, which is 150. No, it'll be a bit funny with me. Alright, I'm going to delete that and do it again. Linear. Click on that. Click on that. And there's 150. We don't really need to do the height because that's governed by the lid end and the slats and the bottom. So you can't physically change the height. So it's not a fixed dimension, whereas these two dimensions are fixed. They have to be this size. If the timber hasn't been cut properly, it won't necessarily be this size. If you haven't cut the fingers correctly, this could end up being 145. That means the lid won't fit. The base will have to be cut different to size, same as the length. If you make the body of the treasure chest smaller or bigger, the lid won't fit. All these dimensions have to be right. So those two there on your treasure chest, the completed treasure chest, are the important dimensions. Click Save. Always remember to click Save. Now we can go look at the individual parts. To see those individual parts, we need to go to View, use Front, and that will bring these parts up. Now, because they're so close together, what we will do is move the viewport so that we're having an individual part in there, double click in it, and we want it to be 1 to 2 because the scale is 1 to 2 for all of them. It doesn't matter if it's got too big, we can't see it anymore. All we've got to do is move the viewport until we can see the complete thing. Move that one up. Then we can copy that viewport, put it down there, double click inside and go and find our other end. Zoom it up so that it's the only thing as much as possible within our viewport. Make it 1 to 2. Click paper. Now move it so that that's all we can see. Move it up a little bit. Then we'll copy this viewport. Double click inside it. And we know that our end was the next one in there, the lid end. Go to our scale, 1 to 2. Model. These ends here are cut with a CNC router to get them precise. It is very, very hard to be able to cut that by hand and know that it's going to be the same size every time. If these slats, these slats have got to be all the same size and they've got to match these exactly. If they're 1 millimeter out, randomly it throws the whole shape of the lid out and the way that these fit together. So these here, and it's used from a file that AutoCAD's created, gets put in the software for a CNC router, and then these are cut precisely. They're exact. Perfect is about the only word that can be said. And every one of them is exactly the same. So now what we've got left is to do the slats, and that's them down there. We need to be able to look at the front view. Go to View, Ready Views, Front. That's them here. Change the 1 to 2. model. And you can bring them the viewport in smaller. What I might do is I'll move these ones apart a little bit so that, because we've got to put text around these, it could be better if they're a little bit further apart. Okay, and we'll move that down. Because we've got one more viewport for the base. See, all of these fit on an A3 sheet of paper, whereas if it was A4, you wouldn't be able to get all your parts on one sheet of paper. So we'll zoom out and it will be top to be able to see and that's actually not really good for our drawing because it's vertical. If I look at top, I can rotate this so it's horizontal. Then it'll fit on the sheet better. It's because it's vertical, it doesn't really suit itself to be on here. Whereas now it'll fit on a piece of paper. And I will have to scale that. The model. That's it. Move it down so it fits on the sheet better. Move this one down a little bit, not too much. That's it. And that'll finish out all the parts we need. Might move these two down a little bit. Okay, so now we go back to the dimensioning of it. We've got to put all the dimensions we need on these parts. So I get a dimension, linear. We need the length of this one, 250. We need the height of it, 67. We also need the size of our fingers, 13, 13. And we only need to do these two here. We don't need to dimension this one because we've got the overall dimension here. If we put a dimension on here, it's what's called a closing dimension, and it's just bad practice to do that. I think I've talked about that on previous tutorials. And we need one more dimension, is the depth of the cut. So we need that. Now that's all we need for that one. This one here, it'll be the length that we need. The height. And you'll find that these measurements, I don't know what happens there. Sometimes it wants to be funny, like now. Gets a bit temperamental sometimes. So I'll try it down this end. Click, click. Yeah. It's just, you got to pick it. Sometimes it's like that. Our depth, our distance. These will be the same as the other one. It's just that you've got the fingers that are left are different. This one's got the 2 cutouts and 3 fingers. This one's got 3 cutouts and 2 fingers. You don't need to do both ends because they're exactly the same. This one here, you only need to dimension this size, but that's only for checking purposes. It's not really, as I said, that one's done with a machine. It's a fixed size. This you need. So what I'll do is I'll try going up from the bottom. Shouldn't make any difference, but sometimes it does. No. Try it on this side. Been hard to get on with, but that's the way that it is. Sometimes you just got to persevere with it. Yeah. But that one worked. Delete. Okay, I see what's going on here. So we'll continue to try and get this dimension right. Dimension, linear. What I think's happening is that it's picking the back of it. That's why what I was talking about with the 3-dimensional thing in the picking the wrong edge. I will try this one, see if we can get it right. That's our 31. We need to have a distance between the centers. It's really hard to get 2.27. We need a radius on there, radius there. This one here, because it's impossible to get that, I'll right click on precision, make it 0, just 24. 0.27 isn't going to make that much difference to it in the manufacture. Overall length is 28. Width is 12. Our radius 6. This one's the same. A normal dimension there to there. That top dimension is not really important because it gets taken off with the plane. Vision 22. Now what we need to do is we have to have text. So we know these parts. Where's our text box here? Text, text style. Here, text. So this one here, we have to write on it. There's 8 of, and they are alternating colors. Alternating. Drag that out. Okay. We can just copy this. Copy. And that will be one of. And this one here, it's either or, but we will just call it radiator. That's one colour. And this one we will copy again over here. Double click on, no, let's see how it double clicked in the model space. Don't want to do that. I double clicked on the text and it's Moranti. Moranti, not Mianti. Moranti. Okay, because that's the quantities. This one here, copy. Two of. Okay, so these are all the same. Copy, there's two of those alternating, two of those, and two of those. So that's all our components that we need to do for the drawing, all the dimensions we need except for that, but that's pretty stuck. That's the size of the treasure chest. Now the last thing we've got to do, once you get the title block, double click on it, and these are the attributes. It's advanced attribute editor. What's your name? I'll just put my initials. Apply. What scale? Remember we did 1 to 2. Change that, 1 to 2. Apply. When did you start? Whatever date it was that you started the drawing. So I'll say it's the 11th 05 2020. Apply. What is the drawing? A treasure chest. And put capital letters at the beginning, please. Apply. We'll just call this 01. Apply. How many times? Well, there's no revisions. That's only when we've got to change something. So it's just 0. And this one here, sheet, it's 1 of 1. Now this is important in the instance when you've, see I've got 4 layouts, there's 5 layouts now. This one's it would be 1 of 5. And this second one would be 2 of 5, 3 of 5, 4 of 5, and 5 of 5. When you've got more than one sheet, the people you're giving to have got to know that there's other sheets and which one in order. If they had 4 out of 5, they could all their right to say, hey, where's the other one? Because there'd have to be a reason why. Yeah, it worked this time. There'd have to be a reason why there was a 5th sheet, and there might be something that needs to be known. So there's obviously something happening here. That's why it's done that. It's made it 251.25. Yeah, there it is. It's not on the corner. It's hooked onto the dimension. And now it's 250. That's what it's supposed to be. Okay, so now that drawing is finished. When we print it, I'll just click print and I'll preview. It's usually extents, and you center your plot, preview it. There's my drawing, and you'll see that the viewports doesn't show, and that's got all the information that we need for the drawing. Okay, so that will be the end of this tutorial. I'll cancel that. If you've got any questions, just let me know, and I'll clarify it, but this should be enough to get your drawing done. Okay, have a go and have fun.